Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And Joel, I actually get to start off today with a report of some good news. For the past 3 years or so, we used to have an app, an LOA Today app, that has been out of commission for the last 3 years. And with the help of artificial intelligence, I have successfully fixed it.
Congratulations.
And the iPhone version is now available to iPhone listeners on the App Store, which, by the way, is about 98% of our audience. Very few people in our audience are Android listeners. Almost all of them are on iPhones, interestingly enough. But so if you wanted to check out the LOA Today app in the past and couldn't do it, you can do it now. Check it out. There's some really cool stuff on there. It's a little bit older, but it's mostly what they call evergreens, ideas on how to get into a high vibe place and attracting money and attracting relationships and all that kind of good stuff.
Excellent.
So people check it out. Finally, the LOA Today app is back, and I'm hoping to get it on Android soon. There's also a PC and a Mac version that I'll put links on the website. But I actually have some good news where programming is concerned. And you know me and programming, we're not exactly.
I was about to say, well, I don't ever remember any good news from you in programming.
Well, I figured it was about time we changed that narrative around.
I love it. That's perfect. That's great news. Yes.
And it fits in nicely with our topic today, because once again, I picked this up off of your Facebook news feed, and it was a post that you shared about how important it is to create a positive environment for yourself in your life. Well, trying to get the LOA Today app published, that was part of improving my environment. It's not a person part of the environment. It's more like part of the show kind of environment. But it's one of those things that makes me feel good. Even if nobody listens to it. I mean, that's what's so weird about it. Nobody even has to download the darn thing. I feel better just having made it. And
it's an accomplishment.
Well, it is an accomplishment.
Yeah. And, the context of the post was mainly surrounding, if you don't have a positive environment, you need to be able to create one. So, everybody says, well, my environment's terrible, I can't do the things you're asking me to do. Then we need to create the environment. And, you and I spoke with a lady a long time ago. I can't remember. She was in a foreign country in a really bad position, if you remember correctly. And she didn't have a lot of a positive environment, and just all that was going on. Her environment, it basically sometimes, I don't know exactly whatever happened, but things were really tough for her. And our discussion was, how do you create a positive environment when things are so bleak and so negative? And we gave some suggestions. I never know how that ended up being, of course. I hope it turned out well. But we as humans, especially law of attraction, people that practice the law of attraction on their behalf, the environment you live in is so imperative. And when you have negative people, you have negative energy, you have a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, your vibration is lowered. You attract more negative things. So on the surface, it sounds really simple: create a positive environment, and let's do that. But when you get to the logistics of it all, the reason that it's intriguing, and what do we need to do to achieve it? Sometimes there's people in your environment that aren't going to see it the same way. So sometimes you can't lead people. Sometimes you can't leave yourself. So figuring out ways within that to either combat the negative, and again, you're really not combating negative, you're increasing positivity. But the everything from how you wake up to your inner dialogue, all those things lead to a positive environment. And so much of it is a perspective that perspective dictates everything, as we say every week, and your environment is perspective based as well. So you can, if you're griping about the home you live in or the people in your home and all that stuff, then your emphasis or your thought process is on the negative. So we tend to create that. But what I like to do, the house I lived in, I've lived in here since 2012. It's nothing wrong with the house. It's a fine house, good neighborhood. But I've been here in my mind, I've never been anywhere 12 years in my life. That's a long time to be somewhere. So there's times I'm like, yeah, this is where I want to be. I've been looking at maybe moving to a townhome on the other side of town, various things. But I need to remind myself that this house has accomplished a lot for me. It's accomplished the mission. The house itself has had very little problems with it. Again, the safest neighborhood maybe in America. Nothing happens here. Nothing.
Wow.
It's a really nice, incredible neighbor. Some of my best friends now are neighbors that we just grown together over the years. So I look to that. So my environment is generally pretty positive because I look at what's right, not what's wrong with the place. I look at what's right with the place. That is a piece of this. If you're able to do it, that is a piece of it.
It's funny too, because there's also a yin and yang piece to it, because if you're in a good vibrational space, you're going to attract a neighborhood like that. It's going to find you. And that's going to be true with a lot of things that have to do with our environment. Well, it happened today to me. I was hiring for the gardening service, and I hired a new gardener today. It was the shortest interview I've done. And it was actually such a short interview that it made me uncomfortable.
Wow.
Because I knew within like the first 10 seconds that I should hire this woman. Part of the reason I knew it is because she's into law of attraction. She completely buys into the kind of spiritual beliefs we talk about. We had instant rapport.
Wow.
And you know how you get that feeling about somebody? It's just like it's a perfect vibration inside. You just feel it. It feels good. Everything feels good about it. And it felt so good that I actually said to her, I shouldn't say this to you, but you're hired. But I want to spend the next 10 minutes interviewing you because I feel like I should.
Yeah. Well, but your instincts, and when you're in the right direction, trying to raise your energy, your sort of your environment, sometimes just your personal environment, you and within yourself, but the environments that you go to, where you go to work. Before I went into private practice, as you remember where we met, I was working at a treatment center.
Right.
And while there was a lot right with the treatment center, there was a lot of negativity. There was a lot of the owner of the facility was very, at times, could be very aggressive and rageful. Not really necessary toward me, but to others. And the environment was considered pretty toxic. And I worked really hard to raise the environment for my colleagues, but yet I still had to deal with that. So when I went into private practice, I'm in charge of my environment. I'm in charge of how I see it. So the office I moved to at that time, I got my salt lamp, I got my stuff, the stuff that I like, and I created my environment. And then I moved to another office, which is even a better, nicer location. And working on every environment, I have 3 basic environments that I'm in every day: my house, my office, and my gym. I go to the gym every day,
right?
And I raise vibration. I try to raise the vibration in the gym. I remind people, have a great day. Hope you're doing well. Perspective based. Like when people start talking to me about, whatever perceived negatives are going on, I'm like, well, there is that, or the fact that you are in the gym, and I'm just known as that guy. In fact, one guy calls me when I see me, because he asks me every day how I'm doing. And I go, I'm fantastic. How are you? And he goes, I'm not fantastic, but I'm pretty good. So his automatic response, he just says, hey, fantastic, how are you? And I go, fantastic. And so, I mean, you bring that energy, and it spreads. And that's to me, I think my goal anytime that I enter any room is to influence the energy in the room to a positive direction. I want to bring that energy to meet my vibration. That's my goal. I can't always do it, but that's my goal when I walk into any room.
I know exactly what you mean. I'm curious. Do you look at it also in this way? This is the way I look at it. I don't really think about it in terms of, well, I'm going to raise the energy of this room right now. I suspect you don't necessarily think about it that way either.
No,
I think of it more in terms of, wow, I wonder what I can do, say, or think that's going to make me feel good right now.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things, what makes me successful in what I do. And no matter how, I mean, I have, as you know, I have 100 different certifications. I know every modality. All that. I mean, there's nobody that has more, stuff like that than where.
I often thought that you should get a second website just so you can put up the credentials. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I just list the top 20 of them, whatever they are. You know what I'm saying? So, But the thing that I love most is all that stuff that I know is helpful for, and I do have different strategies for clients. But when a client sits in front of me, I want them to feel my positivity. I want them to feel that. I want them to say when that session's over, I mean, that was good. That energy, I want them to feel raised. So I have a concerted effort to, just bring that energy. It's a tangible thing. So while I don't literally go, I'm raising the energy of the room as we speak. I'm not saying that, but I actually feel like I'm trying to project that energy to the person sitting across from me, and that is the reason that I am so much more in favor of doing in-person sessions than virtual sessions.
Well, yeah. I mean, because you're going to feel it. That's
Yes.
the beauty of being in person. That kind of energy is palpable. I mean,
Yeah.
I mentioned the interview I had earlier today with my new employee. The energy that we were exchanging, we could just feel it.
Yes.
That's why it only took 5 minutes to figure it out. I knew this is it's like I had a little message inside me saying, "What are you waiting for? Hire her. Stop wasting time." That's the way it felt.
Exactly. I have, over the years, like I said, one of my neighbors, we've become very good friends, and that's a tangible energy. We're really sort of different people, but what my stuff I'm good at, she's not, and vice versa. So we have become, and it's not romantic or anything. It's just friends, and it's just a really good energy, and it's just somebody I really enjoy spending time with. I feel like when we're together, we multiply the energy in the room.
Yes.
And that's what so once I sort of engage that, I try to get it reciprocally back, and I just sort of imagine that it's spewing all over the room. It's just going there, and it happens so many times. Like you're saying, when you sat down with this person today, you felt the tangible connection. It was there. You knew instantly you were going to hire, and that's because the energy in the room was allowing that, because you brought that energy to the room. If it were a negative energy in the room, even if it was a good fit, it might not have felt as wow. It wouldn't have been as exciting because the room wasn't set. Your energy wasn't set. And how many opportunities over the years have we missed because our energy wasn't on point to receive those opportunities?
Oh, now you're trying to depress me. I mean,
yeah, good. Let's spin that way.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And I literally do not want to think about how many times that I've done that, because I've done it a lot of times in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have, one of the things that has been happening lately with me, which I really love, because I love this kind of concept. So I get calls all the time, people wanting me to do something, either, do consulting or whatever. And what I don't know if I told you this, but I stopped charging for consulting right now. I don't charge an hourly fee, but what I do is I get a piece of the company. If something's in trouble, this company's about to go bankrupt, I'll say, look, I don't want any money for this, but I'll do this. I'll do a great job, but I want 5%. I want 3%. I want a percentage of the company.
That's a great way to do it, man. Oh,
yeah.
My goodness.
Oh, it's just shockingly, they would have been much better off paying me $500 an hour.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because we were done. Because I've had some dramatic turnarounds that have just been incredible. So I've been getting a lot of that stuff lately. Like people calling and saying, "This is doctors for the most part are the absolute worst business people on the planet. They're brilliant."
This is true.
And you know what they often do is because it sounds so logical, that they bring their wife in to run the company of the medical office. It is literal. There are epic failures because of that. I won't go into all the reasons why it never works, but it always fails. And the wife running the office is just, not that she's bad, but it's just they're not equipped to handle what's coming up. And a doctor needs somebody to sort of motivate him. You need to get this stuff done. The wife is often very protective. A lot of stuff doesn't ever get done. So I've had turned several private practices around. I have one now that I'm talking to them about. They're really in trouble. They had an employee theft situation, and I'm like, look, I will do this. I already have the people in place. I know the people to hire. I have the person that can oversee the installation of the new medical billing system. I said, I have a plan in place and I'll implement it. But in this case, it's close to not making it. So I'm going to want 10%. I want 10%. And when if it doesn't make it, it won't cost you a penny.
Mhm.
If it does make it, once we're profitable, I want to be included and eventually, hopefully, sell the thing. And it's an amazing thing. And I've been attracting a lot of those lately.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
just really wow.
Yeah.
Interesting business model too. But thanks for sharing that. I like that.
Yeah, it really, you got to a point, but in the consulting, it always paid well. But, and there's a point to this whole story too, but consulting always paid well. But I don't really need any more money, but I love owning companies. And then when something sells, when something sells, these things generally, medical practices, when they sell, they're gigantic sales.
They are, yeah.
I have one company that potentially could, it's just outrageous. It could be in the, upper, it might be a $70 million company when we're done.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I love that. But one of the things when I make that transition, one of the first things I do when I get into any position of doing that, and the first change I make is we got to raise the energy. We got to raise the positivity, because most of the time they're in a really, really down state. So that the biggest thing is we got to change the whole perspective and how we're looking at it. And once I come in and do my rah stuff and sell them on that, and there's always people that think I'm an idiot, and he thinks he's going to change us and all that. And as you know, I'm always concerned what people think. So
yeah, of course, top priority for you.
yeah. So but what happens then on the other side when it's successful, it's like, oh my gosh, these things work.
Yeah.
So, but the fundamental first thing I do when I take over one of these things is I work on exactly what we're talking about, creating a positive environment within the structure that already exists. It almost always is a negative environment when I arrive.
It makes sense. And you mentioned a wife running the practice. I'm going to hazard a guess that the same thing can often be true if it's a hospital running the practice. And the reason I'll say that is just because I've encountered practices that were run by hospitals that had horrible ratings in Google and all the other places that do ratings out there. And it was because the damn hospital didn't know how to run a practice, which is mind-boggling. I mean, that's the business that they're in, but they don't know what you're talking about. They don't understand vibration. They don't understand positive atmosphere. All they understand is bean counting. And so they try to run it like a bean counter.
If one of the first things I do, especially in a medical practice, because the biggest complaint universally in medical practices is the wait. I don't want to wait. They overbook, and you might sit in a doctor's office for 2 hours waiting to be seen.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable. If you make an appointment in my private practice to see me at 3:00 tomorrow, at 3:00 you're going to be sitting down in my office. I promise you. If there was some emergency, I would step out into the lobby and tell you, I'm running a few minutes late. I have an emergency, but I will be right with you. At 3:00, there is never waiting. So one of the first things I do is we work on that. I get the doctors to speed it up. I get the doctors to do the things we want to do. One of your things, instead of scheduling 6 patients in an hour that a doctor's got to stop in and see, I cut it to 3, 20 minutes. And also the ability to have a backup nurse practitioner if something happens to get them off schedule. I have a system that I like to. I don't want anybody to be sitting there, not in the room, out in the lobby. Should not be out there. And their appointment time's at 3. By 3:10, they need to be in their waiting room. Period.
I love
that. And those changes change the practice. The bureaucracy of the hospital is never any bureaucracy. I've worked in this settings for years. Hospitals have, next to the government, which is by far the king of terrible bureaucracy, hospitals are right behind them. They have so many irrelevant, redundant protocols that it's just absurd. And so when they try to run a practice, it's just ridiculous what they try to put in place. So my point is not to bash hospitals, not to bash that. I want to come in and change that environment, and that is the employees feel it, morale goes up, everybody gets on board, and these things turn around pretty quickly when you do that.
I believe that, and it makes total sense to me. It's one of the things not just we're not we could apply this across the board to almost any business.
Sure.
It's one of the things that are really missing from a lot of businesses, many of them successful.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses are missing the basics of answer the phone, do things on time, keep your word, just basic stuff that, if they were talking to a business owner from 50 years ago and the business owner from 50 years ago would have said, yeah, what's the issue? That's the way we always do things, but that's not the way it's done. The 50-year-old the businessman from 50 years ago would look at today and say, how do they stay in business?
And that's the thing when when you look at, again, I'm talking medical stuff, but it's across the board. You got to remember, I call when I'm referring this, when I'm working in these practices, of course, doctors will always refer to them as, there are patients, and they are, but I refer to them as customers. For the sake of not to the customer, not to the patient, but these are people that pay our salaries. They're coming here. They have insurance. We're going to bill them. We treat them with incredible respect. We call them back. These are people that make our money. They're not this separate entity that we're doing them a favor to see them. We exist, and changing the perspective of that. And so I refer to them in business meetings in the practice as customers. They're your customers. We will never call them that, but I want to make it understand your $300,000 a year salary I want to pay that doctor is paid by those people in the lobby. They need to be treated like that.
Yeah. And it is a different mindset. It's a mindset that changes the word patient, because for most medical people, a patient is a client who is consulting with you for a medical reason. But there's also the secondary meaning that you can look up in the dictionary. Patient means to be patient with somebody. And asking your patient to be patient is really a dumb thing to do.
And when people feel heard, when they feel heard, understood, their experience already is raised. You say please, you say thank you, and we appreciate you. Come back and follow up. All those things. I believe in all of that stuff. It sounds so remedial, but these things change in any business. It changes everything. And in the book Atomic Habits, the guy is talking about. I'm a big fan of Atomic Habits, by the way.
We did a show on that one, by the way.
Yes, fantastic. And so he's talking about the English bicycle team, which was a horrible. Nobody wanted to associate with these people. They were absolutely wacky, never won, terrible program. So this new coach comes in and he makes these fundamental changes that we're talking about, these basic, minute little changes. Everything from compression shorts to the heat, none of them at all were tangibly assertive. They didn't make a big difference, but added together, they became the most successful cycling team in the history of the sport for multiple years. They still may be. I don't follow it, but in the book it goes to 2018, and it was done by that. So I use that theory when I go in and do that. Let's increment what matters the most. I ask. I have questionnaires. When I take over, I'll ask them to give to the customers or the patient. I want honest. What is good and bad about us? What do we need to change? What do we, and half of them don't fill it out, but the ones that fill it out, I take it really serious. And the number one thing, I don't want to wait an hour in your lobby. I can't do that.
Yeah. It makes total sense to me. Interesting too. We're talking about creating a positive environment. Isn't it interesting how doing very simple things like not keeping people waiting, being polite, treating them in a way that shows appreciation, isn't that interesting? That creates a positive environment.
That's the point. Yes, exactly. You raise the customer satisfaction is shockingly based, not even shocking, I guess but when people feel valued and that energy is raised, that's all that is. I have a Lexus, and one thing that Lexus is phenomenal with at their service, they are incredible. They keep me informed step by step. If my car needs something, they'll come pick it up, bring me a loaner. They do amazing service. So half the reason that I'm going to be buying a new Lexus here in the next couple of months is because of that service.
Sure.
It's no doubt that I'm buying a Lexus. No doubt. I will go back and buy another one. It's just, I've had this one for 2 years, so that's a long time for me. So it's time. It's
you're,
really time.
You're one of those people. I got
every 2 years, absolutely. But within all of this, Walt, what makes it exciting for me is, I trust these people. They know my name. I have one service guy that deals with me. They know my stuff. That you don't call and solicit silliness from me. You simply, this guy will do business. I don't want to, hey, we got a special. I don't want to hear all that stuff. I just, let's have a good relationship. They've always been there. I've had one or two what I would call issues or immediately resolved without any question. And it costs them money to resolve them too. And they never blink. So I really respect Lexus, and my customer satisfaction is mainly because of that positive environment that they instill.
It's fascinating to me. We live in the age of quick profits. Everybody wants quick profits in their businesses. Stockholders want that. Investors want that. How interesting that this whole notion that we're talking about here, this whole idea of simply catering to the needs of the customers as customers, how interesting that doesn't get included in the formula of a quick profit. Because it turns around really fast, like you're saying. It's almost mind-boggling that it gets left out, and yet it does.
Well, years ago, when I was in South Carolina, I ended up I owned a couple of gyms, like 3 gyms. Mm-hmm. Not a big chain, but too long a story how I ended up with them. But basically, I fell into the sweetheart deal. And so the gyms weren't very well run. And so when I was going to take them over, there was a lot of resistance to me taking them over. They were worried about change and stuff like that. So there was also a lot of waste. I mean, there were clearly like a lot of the products were just being given away or stolen or whatever, like protein shakes and all the other stuff. And the electric bill was outrageous, and there was no concern for the bottom line whatsoever. So I worked on changing the environments. One of the first things I did is I explained to them, I said, what I'm going to do, I said, this gym has not been profitable for a while. I said, I'm going to make it profitable. And how you're going to benefit from that is when I'm going to put the entire expenses on the board, what we bring in, and whatever is profit, I'm going to split it 50-50 with the employees. I'm going to get 50%, the employees are going to get 50%.
Good strategy. I like that.
Yeah. And so at first they sort of were like, yeah, whatever. There's like 22 employees. And the first month, we lost money, but I was able to say, okay, our electric bill was $4,200 last month. That's a lot of electric bill. And I know for a fact when you leave the sauna on overnight, that is an outrageous amount. So I went through the thing. So I got them to buy into lowering the electric bill. I said, if we could cut that in half, that's $2,000 of profit. Mm-hmm. So as we did all this, as we were going through this, they started to see that profit side build up. And I was true to my word. I would take 50% and I would divide it equally among the 22 people. I had a formula for longevity too, but at one time, I mean, maybe they got an extra $50 a month or whatever. Mm-hmm. 1 month, they each got like $600.
Whoa.
And so all of a sudden, I have a very motivated, positive group of people that are wanting to do that. So when it came time for me to sell the gyms, and when I moved up here, I showed a really big profit and was able to sell it for a large amount of money. Mm-hmm. Because what I really did was change the environment.
Right. Yeah. Interesting how that works, isn't it?
Yeah.
But why do you think it is, like I said before, why is it that the short-term thinking somehow leaves out customer satisfaction? I don't quite get that. I mean, maybe you have an idea on that.
I just think a lot of times most times business people just fail to realize the value. Like you're saying, 50 years ago it was there. But with everything being online, terrible customer service, I am the biggest Amazon fan in the world. I mean, Amazon is at my house every day. I own a boatload of Amazon stock. So I'm not criticizing Amazon, but and they do a great job, but
They do.
it's all impersonal. I mean, I am amazed that I order something at 8 this morning and it's here by noon. I still don't know how they do all that stuff, but they're amazing. But they also, lost in it is, I think the value of Amazon, why I view them positively, is if you
Yeah. I have this horrible noise going on. Can you hear me? Oh. Can you hear me? Can't hear me. I'm hearing this horrible stuff. It's horrible. Oh,
can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay, I don't know
That
what
was
happened.
that was your
Look,
headphones. Your headphones. I don't know if it was coming through on the show or not, but it was coming through this really
oh,
loud
really?
sound. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So for
So
like the last minute and a half, that was crazy.
really, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, keep talking. I want to get something else real quick. See if it's better.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, I'm just glad that we're able to make proper
Yeah.
sound again.
Yeah.
I mean, I have never experienced that before. I have never had that on 2,000 episodes. I never had that particular thing happen. So it's one of those rare occasions where normally I don't like to edit things. Normally I don't like to edit things out of the podcast. This time I'm going to edit that piece out because that was just totally horribly disruptive. I don't want
Yeah.
that in the podcast.
Wow. I have no idea what happened. Can you hear me now?
I hear you fine. Yeah. Do you hear me
Okay.
okay?
Good. Yeah. Yeah. I got some AirPods in now. So
That was so strange.
I don't know what happened. These are the super high quality Sony headphones. So I don't know what went on there.
I don't know. Well, whatever.
Anyway.
The main thing is we're back. So
Okay, well, I was just rambling on, but sort of circling back to you'll figure out how to piece all this together in the edit. But as I was just pointing out, the changing the incrementals, changing your perspective, changing people's perspective of everything, creating positive environments. I am very much a student of anyone that ever works for me or with me. Is I figure out what makes them tick. I want to know what matters to them, so I can be positive to them. Years ago, I went to work for this company, and I was going to be a director of the company. And one of the ladies there was necessary. She had all the information, but for some reason, she didn't like me at first. And I don't know why. Maybe just whatever she thought didn't matter. But I really tried. So anything I ever did. So one day I heard her talking to somebody else about her grandson, and so apparently her grandson was having some problems, and with medical problems. And so the next day she said, "Look, I'm going to need to take off a few hours to take my grandson to the doctor." I said, "You will absolutely not do that." And she looked at me really. I said, "You will take off the entire day and spend the day with your grandson." And her reaction was like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." And so when she came back the day after, I said, "How's your grandson doing?" She said, "Well, we had this. And I said, "Well, I know a pediatrician, and I hooked her up with somebody who might be a better fit, who called her that night." Sounds manipulative, but I made that connection. she became my most loyal employee I've ever worked with.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I
And
can see that. I
yeah,
certainly can see that.
yeah. I mean, people said, "Well, you manipulated her," and I said, "I just increased the positivity. I found out what her language was, and it was her grandson, and her grandson. You know, it turned out the story ended up really nicely. And after that, I mean, I had an entirely different rapport with her. I mean, she was my most loyal person I've ever worked with.
I'm intrigued by the people who said that you manipulated her. Like, really?
Yeah,
What if that's manipulation? Then what label do they apply to somebody who tries to tear you down?
yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I honestly don't get that one. If that's
Yeah,
that's manipulation, huh? Okay.
yeah, well, a
Well,
lot of people feel, but I was, I was concerned about the grandson. I also, everybody that I get to know that becomes my friend, I want to know what your language is. I know what
yeah,
matters to you. I don't consider that manipulation. I
it's
want to
not.
know. Yeah. So, but again, call it what you want to. I just find it a very effective way. So, increasing positivity in any way you can. It also includes understanding what makes that person tick.
Mm. Well, and it doesn't take all that much, actually.
No, no,
I
not
mean,
at all.
seriously,
It
all you
doesn't.
have to. There's a simple rule to follow. Would you like it? That's the
Yeah,
rule.
yeah,
How if you were treated the way that you're proposing to treat somebody, would you like it?
exactly. And that
I mean,
makes all the
it's not
difference.
100% foolproof, but it'll cover a whole lot.
Well, it will. And so, increasing when you increase, positivity could be, like we said, a connection with a person, asking how their kids doing, grandkids doing, learning out. I heard your grandmother was in the hospital. Is she doing well? Those are just things that you make a connection. And positivity, once you get a spiral in any direction, good or bad, a spiral meaning upwards or downwards. It goes either way. But that spiral of positivity is contagious, and people want in. They want to do it.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that power of how the energy flows when you're in conversation with somebody that you have that really good connection with.
Yes.
And when you were talking about that, it reminded me of an old movie, rather obscure movie that came out, but a cool one. Came out about I don't know 20 years ago, something like that, called Celestine Prophecy, based on a self-published book that was published in the 1990s. One of the scenes in that movie, it attempted to portray that exchange of energy that occurs when two people are in resonance with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And in the context of the story, they were also describing the amplifying effect, that when one person feeds energy to the other person and the other person feeds it back, it amplifies the amount of energy. And they're visually showing that with some CGI, which was kind of cool to see. It was fun to see that. It's even more interesting when you do it with somebody consciously. I don't know if you've ever tried it this way, but literally saying to somebody else, let's see if we can amplify each other's energy.
I've never actually said it. Yeah.
Try that sometime. It's really, it actually amplifies more because you're both into it so much.
Right. Right.
And if you can find the right person to do that with, my God, I mean, the room practically is on fire.
Well, one of the things for me is you and I've always enjoyed a similar sense of humor.
Yes.
And we can pretty much laugh about anything.
This is true.
A lot of stuff doesn't make it on air, thank God.
But there is a time and place for editing.
Yes, there is. You got to cut some of that out. But nonetheless, for me, when I'm with somebody, I deal with some very serious things often. There's a lot going on, and it isn't that I don't take my stuff serious, but when there's time for opportunity to laugh, there's an opportunity to, I always try to bring, humor can break tension. Humor humor raises the positivity in the room anyway, and not negative humor, not but just the general absurdity humor. My situations in life are so absurd sometimes that I always look around like, is there a camera?
Right.
Because this can't be happening without it being fake, and. So it's just I just, as I reflect on my day, as you know, I have a job I love. I'm passionate about what I do. I only choose to be around people that are elevating my energy, that amplify that. And living that way is just such a great way to be. And it is, as you're saying, and we keep using the word tangible, until you experience it, you don't really understand it, because there are people that will make you feel better just by talking to them.
So let's see if we can lay it out for somebody who has not experienced it. Okay, because we just agreed. I mean, if you haven't experienced it, it's kind of like trying to express what red is like to someone who has no eyesight. I don't know where to begin with that one.
Yeah,
but I think we do know where to begin with this one. So for somebody who wants to start building that positive environment, I kind of imagine we're going to start with the same kinds of things you were talking about when you're trying to turn a company around. But where do you start building that positive environment?
Well, you in my mind, you one of the most important things. I'm a question asker. I mean, I ask tons of questions. I want to people. I want to know what makes you tick, what you like. And so a great way to start is gathering information. You know, what do you like? What's your favorite color? What do you like to do? What kind of movies you like?
Mm.
People that I'm close to, I know everything about. And, you know, it's something that, you know, as it builds, you know, I have a really good memory. So once I know it, I know it. And, you know, it's, you know, I know what kind of movies people like. I know, what kind of dessert. You know, it's just little things that you start by sharing, and then once you have any kind of connection, then you can immediately start talking about what's right. I always like to redirect people with their, my life sucks, this is going on. I like to say, well, it does suck right now, but was there a time when you felt good? What did that felt like? If there wasn't a time, how can we, whatever I can to get them to a place to sort of, okay, let me take a shot at this. Let me try to talk. And then talking itself, by the way, especially, I talk with my hands, I talk, with passion. That's contagious. I can get, as you know, I can get on a rant pretty well. And at one of my young clients one day, I don't know, several weeks ago, he's probably 14. He's a little guy. And after the session, he goes, "That was exhausting." Like, what do you mean? He said, "Oh, I'm tired. We talked about saying this. That was fun." Because I've never been he's seen therapists before. I've never been to anybody that I actually enjoyed it. I want to come back. And
wow.
And I just made him. We joked, and 14-year-olds have a great sense of humor. It's often very weird and sometimes inappropriate, but whatever. And just to be able to connect. And once that wall goes down a little bit, then I can get to their soul and can talk to them, and really, they really feel that. So, and it doesn't always translate via the phone or via virtual connection. That's why that in-person thing I mentioned earlier, there is that. Now, it doesn't mean it can't have some influence like we're doing now. There can be some influence, but it is different in person.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt about it. And in fact, his comment that he was exhausted, it's actually a revealing comment now that I think about it, because the exhaustion, I'm sure, comes from the fact that at some point during his exchange with you, he had to let down his guard. Yes. And that is exhausting. Yeah. Because there's all this energy that goes into keeping that guard up. And when you take that away, now you're noticing all that energy you were putting out, and you feel exhausted as a result. So it makes a lot of sense.
It does. It really does. And that's fantastic.
So if you're making that kind of shift in the way, just through the way that you're interacting with somebody, actually they're making the shift. You're encouraging that shift through the way that you're treating them. Just the act of thinking in these positive ways, focusing on upbeat stuff as much as you can, trying to find ways to lift people up and so forth, that can be perceived as being exhausting. I think it's important to remember that. It doesn't mean that it actually is exhausting. What you're doing is feeding energy to them. So in the end, you're actually increasing their energy level.
And he said it was very fun. He said, "I'm exhausted." I spent a lot of energy talking today and laughing, and and again, you find that ability to get them to chuckle. The brain has the brain wants to be positive. The brain wants to feel good. It wants that. But a lot of times, by the time people come to see me, they're sort of stuck in their depression. They're stuck in their loneliness or whatever they're in, and they almost fight feeling better. They
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't want to feel better, and you have to overcome that too. But once you can raise that energy by again, I had one of my I don't know why I remember this one, but I had this kid that his mom made him come, and I don't like to sit down with kids whose moms made them come because they don't want to be there, and so I've handled that very different ways before, but this time, again, I told you I asked a lot of questions, so started asking my list of questions. I have them all written out. I have like 300 questions I can get through.
Wow.
Just asking questions, and they go from logical to the absurd. So, so one day I'm asking, so how are home life? Just give me one word answer. Good. Get along with your parents? Yeah, okay. How's school? Good. And so I'm just going and going and going. I can't get any more than one word answers. And so he's just really getting sort of frustrated. So by the time we're at number like 75 or 80, I go, what is your favorite beetle? He goes, what? I go, your beetle. What kind of beetles do you like? The bugs? And he goes, I don't know if I have a favorite beetle. And he goes, is this necessary? And I go, yeah, I just want to know what kind of beetle you have. And he goes, well, what's the kind? And so he unintentionally, we start discussing beetles. And he goes, I just don't know that. He says, are those, I think they're called Japanese beetles. He goes, okay, so I like a Japanese beetle. And he didn't realize it was that moment he started talking to me. And we didn't talk about much. And then once we got there, now his guard is let down.
Right.
And I got him to talk about, his uncle that was very close to him had recently died. And, and I knew that from what his parents had told me, but I didn't, he wasn't going to tell me. Then finally, we got to that point, and he said, well, he said, yeah, I don't always feel good. I've been thinking a lot lately. I have negative thoughts. And I said, why? I said, do you have any identification? He goes, I'm not really sure. I said, yeah. I said, we don't sometimes know. And then eventually, it could be because my uncle, before he got the word uncle, he just started crying.
Oh, wow.
And then we got to the good part. We was able to do it. And he became I saw him several sessions, always fun, great stuff. I probably saw him, 7 or 8 times. I haven't seen him in years, but that one sticks in my mind because I just was going to find something to get that thing going. Of all things, it was the beetle question. I have, do you like chunky soup, regular soup? Do you like peanut butter with chunky peanut butter? I have ridiculous questions, and it's intended to either piss them off or they say something or whatever.
Right.
But I just keep going. I can spend an entire hour asking questions.
I appreciate that. My father would appreciate that. I've often been complimented as the host of the show for my ability to ask questions and come up with interesting questions for conversation. And I attribute all that to my dad because my dad was the ultimate questioner. I don't know that he actually had a written list, but he probably could have rattled off 300 easily. I can see him doing that.
Yeah. I usually never get past 100, but if I do, I'll keep going.
Yeah, are there questions out there that have never been used? There must be, I would think.
Oh yeah. I looked at the list the other day, and some of the other, chipmunk or squirrel. That's the question.
You know what's funny about that is if you had asked me that when I lived in Virginia, because when we first met, I lived in Virginia about 2 hours from you, and if you'd asked me then, I would have said chipmunk.
Yeah.
And the reason was there were no chipmunks in the area.
Yeah.
There are tons of them around here. So here I'd probably say squirrel.
Yeah. Yeah. And the beautiful thing, Walt, there is no right answer.
Of course,
whatever, yeah. But it's just, but again, engagement and finding out, just people. I tend to believe most people, for the most part, want to feel good. I believe a lot of people have been burned so many times. A lot of people have been, so they're more protective. And when you can get to that place where they can feel that positive, that the environment, I encourage people to, how do you create your home environment that's positive? I work with a young man right now that has a very unhealthy home life. He's only 17. He can't leave. And, you know, he's not being abused, but it's just not positive. And so he's made his room a very positive place. He has, you know,
Wow.
and he's really done that. And he said, I can't greatly affect the whole house, but I can certainly make my room a positive place. And
Yeah.
what he did, he told his mom, who came in one night, you know, yelling about something. Those were his words. He said, Mom, look, I'm trying really hard. I can't make you stop, but can we not do that in this room? Can you go out in the hallway? If you're going to yell at me, can you yell at me in the hallway? Because I don't want to mess up my. And she goes, I don't want to affect you. I don't want to yell at you at all. I didn't realize I was doing that. And it actually it changed the whole, because she never heard it put that way. It's like, you know, it's like, if you're going to yell, let's just get out of my room so I don't want to mess up this. And and it changed the dynamic. That one thing he did changed the whole house.
That is really a great story. It's a great example. I mean, there's a situation where, by rights, by every measure anybody could have known, there was nothing he could do to change that house's energy. But he changed the energy in his room, and he ended up changing the energy of the house.
Yeah, and it changed. I mean, that's the beautiful thing, that you know, your energy is contagious, and you're in control of your energy. Your perspective dictates that, and you know. And I'm not saying when you're in control, I'm not saying this isn't work. You got to work at it.
Oh,
right?
God, yes.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of practice. Let's be.
Yeah, I tell people all the time. People assume that, well, Joel, you're always positive. You never have negative thoughts. That's not at all accurate. I'm human. I have negative thoughts. I have a friend. This is something that really was valuable to me. This happened on Easter. So I'll frame the story pretty well. So best I can. So again, this friend I was talking about, I've become very close with. She helps me with some of my business stuff, and so I had the situation where one of my clients, and I was in charge of all this. I help his family case manage this guy, and on Monday after Easter, he was scheduled to move out of his assisted living facility, and into this other home that was going to be rented. And he had some disabilities. It took us forever to find a place that would accept him to rent to him. And we had movers in place, and we had everything ready to go for Monday morning, 9 a.m. Well, we get a message from the landlord saying, look, I'm delayed today. He can't move in tomorrow. It'll have to be Tuesday. So we had to scramble. So I texted my friend, asked her, I said, look, what are we going to do? So she immediately contacted the movie company. She handled it for me on Easter perfectly. And so I was very frustrated with it, you know, and so she wrote back and she said, this is so exciting. I said, what? And that one statement turned, it is exciting. And it went from stressful to exciting, same emotion, but how I directed it. So the story gets even better. The next day, I have a very big, Mondays are my busiest days. So I had a full day. I mean, and then I was going to follow up. That, if you remember, that was the night I was late.
Yeah. I do remember it, yes.
Yeah. So the next day, he was scheduled to move. And through this crazy chain of events, his wife decides she doesn't want to rent to this guy at all. So we were scheduled to move on Tuesday. The assisted living facility that needs the bed. And I'm in the middle of a 7 or 8 straight hours of sessions. And so I am like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I text my friend, colleague, or whatever you call her. And I never really had this experience where I can only check my phone in between sessions. So I notified her of the problem. She instantly handled every single detail. Wow. She canceled the move, canceled this, canceled the electricity, boom, 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 boom. She canceled the cable. And, you know, we were able to extend the assisted living. And it was like, I'm not used to that. And so that energy, the whole time she was doing it, we laugh in between. I said, well, that was a plot twist. It was very stressful, but it wasn't, because we kept the energy positive. It was so cool that even in that, if she weren't involved, that would have been I would have probably had to cancel sessions that day just because I got to deal with it.
Mhm.
And I didn't. It was by the time we were done, we like got through the Monday, and it was hilarious, and it turned out to be so. Having the energy, whether it's in my business, the people that I work with, the people that assist me, those people, when I'm not able to bring my positivity, they've learned to bring theirs, and we raise that energy together.
I love that story on a number of different fronts, not the least of which is because that story illustrates how the same energy can be perceived in two different ways, and how you choose to perceive it dictates what your experience with it is going to be. She chose to see it as exciting.
And not only did she see it as exciting, but when she said, "This is so exciting," it instantly changed my view from stressful to exciting.
Right.
Because I laughed. I go, "She's right. This is exciting." Because it is like a really bad plot twist in the middle of Easter afternoon,
Yeah.
And then the following day was even worse, but we handled it really well. And so we did it with laughter. We did it with humor. It changed my perception of the whole event. It wasn't a bad day after all.
I'll finish with a little tidbit story to tack onto that. Is kind of a way of saying yes, and here's another way of saying the same thing. I started today's episode by announcing that the LOA Today app was back for the first time in years, at least on the iPhone side. And there's a little story that goes with that, because up until the day when I had my breakthrough, by the way, the app itself had been fixed. It has been fixed for about a month. The hard part was getting it published. And the reason it was hard was because there's all these little pieces of software that are involved that you have to have lined up in order to make the final publishing move happen. And they weren't lining up.
Right.
And every single day that I'd go at it, and I was getting help from AI about it, everything was just going against me. It was just failing. The day that it worked, that day, for whatever reason, I don't remember why, for whatever reason, I decided today was going to be a good day. Not it was going to be fixed, but it was going to be a good day. This was going to be a fun day. There was going to be something fun about it. And do you know that thing worked first try that day?
Wow.
First try.
Yeah. You raise that energy. Yes.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting poser for you. If I hadn't raised my energy, would I have defeated that thing? I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't rule it out.
What you bring to the table, your perspective of a good day and bad day changes the day itself. It literally does. So, semi-funny story. Last week, I was Broad Street in Richmond. I have to cut over to Monument Avenue to get to my office. So I normally go sort of the main thoroughfare. So I said, I'm going to cut through this residential area.
Okay.
So I'm driving. I don't know if you saw the post with the police car behind me.
I did.
Yeah. So, so I'm driving. I'm in the city of Richmond. 35 is the standard speed limit unless it's posted. Well, I didn't see the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. On top of that, I was also doing 39. So, so this officer pulled me over, and I'm having a really good day. I'm bringing and I have to admit, I have been pulled over more than once. Occasionally, I never get a ticket. Well, this time, having a good day. He's not laughing at my jokes. So I'm like, oh boy, I'm getting a ticket. And I still didn't care, but I really wanted him to laugh at my jokes, and he wouldn't laugh at my jokes. So he's sitting back in his car, clearly writing the ticket. And the whole point of my day was, I don't know, the ticket's $150, whatever it's going to be, it doesn't matter. Could care less about that. The only complaint I had, he never laughed at my jokes. If I knew who the judge was, I would go to court to plead guilty, but complain that he didn't laugh at my jokes. That's the only thing that was negative about it. I don't care that I got a ticket. It's just he didn't even smile. And I brought some good stuff, Walt. I brought some quality material that day.
Which, by the way, is not going to be the typical reaction that most people have when they're pulled over. But that was the Joel Olson reaction.
Yeah, everybody says, "Oh, you got a ticket." I go, "Yeah, Karen's got a ticket, but he wouldn't laugh at my jokes." And so it was just this sort of letdown for me. Not the ticket, but I really pride myself on, you got to laugh at my jokes, and it didn't matter. I paid the ticket online. I'm not going to go to court, but I thought it would be funny to go to court just to argue that he didn't laugh at my jokes.
And the judge would give you a really funny look at that point.
Well, if it was the right judge, I would that would be hilarious. But you don't know which judge you're going to get, so I'm not going to take that chance.
The last thing you want is the cop's brother-in-law as the judge.
Yes. And this officer was very professional. There was no problem.
Sure.
He just was not having humor that day. So
yeah, I'll tell you what though. I mean, it's a funny story, and the way you handled it certainly helped you with your own vibration. But there's also another piece to it. There's a very good chance that you raised his vibration without seeing it.
Yeah.
I mean, at the next hour, he may have been chuckling to himself for all you knew.
Yeah. Well, he clearly, like, I felt, and I don't know, he clearly knew I didn't care about the ticket. That was the thing. You know, like his statement was, it's going to be, what he said, $150. And he goes, I don't think you care about that at all. And, and I'm like, well, if it will help, I care. He didn't laugh. and he was right.
That's a great line.
It was a good. Yeah. But he didn't laugh, so I just stayed away from it. But my point is, there was a time in my life where a speeding ticket could have really affected my entire day. It was not I had more fun with it on Facebook, just telling him he wouldn't laugh at my jokes. It was a fun thing. The ticket was totally irrelevant. I haven't had a ticket in years, so I don't really care at all. But it didn't affect my vibration. That day went on. It was a great day. Even told you I'm running about an hour late. We were only about 20 minutes late.
That's right. Yeah. Which is a great way to sum up the conversation, because we haven't really mentioned this part, but the fact is that when you raise the vibration of the room, when you focus on building a positive environment, when you focus on finding the plus side of any situation, there's a really terrific piece of collateral that goes along with it, which is you feel better. You have a better life. Everything improves.
And I will tell you this. There's only really, and this is so remedial for so many people, but it sounds so cliche, but the way life operates, and I've gotten to a place, when you wake up, that's it. That's all you need. You woke up. Let's there will be a morning where I don't wake up. And I want to treat each day like, I want a high vibration on that. My goal between now and when that last day is, it could be tomorrow, it could be 30 years from now. But my goal is every day to try to keep my vibration. That's it. It's real simple. The gratitude list. I do a gratitude list still every morning, but the only thing that matters is you woke up. Let's do something with that.
So I'm going to guess that question number 298 is: did you do your gratitude list today? Just a guess. I don't know.
Yeah. That's much earlier. But
it is earlier. Okay. All right.
It's probably the top 50.
Okay. Well, I got to tell you, as usual, this is your daily dose of happy. My daily dose came through a double dose today. So thank you very much. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
It was very fun. Always good. Always good to talk to you, my friend.
It certainly is. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye.